In this video, we are going to make dependent drop-down lists using jQuery, JavaScript library for matrix flex question on QuestionPro online survey tool to show or hide options in a drop-down list based on selection in another drop-down list. If you are not familiar with QuestionPro, don't worry. You can use the same methods you will learn in this tutorial for other online survey tools, such as SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics. As we know that we can apply many logics on each question type on QuestionPro, but Matrix Flex does not have this feature to apply logics on, apart from JavaScript Logic. What you see on the screen is the preview mode of a Matrix Flex question with 1 row and 3 columns. The left column is for the text, and the middle one with label, category, with having a drop-down element inside, and the third column with label, list, for the second drop-down. For the purpose of this tutorial, we have only 1 row here, but you can put as much as rows and columns on this type of question. In the first drop-down we have 3 categories, movies, books and sports, and in the second drop-down, have a longer list of options belonging to the categories in the drop-down one. And if we choose each category in the second drop-down, it shows only the relevant options and hide other options for the other categories. For example, selecting movies, and here it shows only the type of movies. And when we select books, in the second drop-down all the other options will be hidden apart from those options we want to show for type of books only. And when we choose sports in the first drop-down, we will be able to see only sports options in the other drop-down list. So, let's start, going back to the survey design or edit mode. This is the Matrix Flex question. In the left bottom corner of the question, we see an with JS sign. It means that JavaScript logic is applied on this question. And by clicking on Settings on the upper right corner we see the type of the question, Flex Matrix. And when we click on Logic, here we see that there is only JavaScript logic option. As for the other questions, we have many logic options, such branching, skip logic, compound branching, show hide options or question and so on. This is the entire code I have put under pre-JavaScript logic in order for the script to run once the question loaded. So, for now, let's copy and remove the code and also disactivate pre-JavaScript logic. And paste it into an online code editor. Looking at the code, we have defined 4 variables using jQuery library. The first one is to show the full list items, in another word, all options in the second dropdown. In the first variable, we are just defining the path of the second drop-down list items. The rest of the variables are for defining the path and also slicing the options or the list items on relevant categories. For these 3 variables, movies, books and sports, we are first defining the path of the second drop-down and then using slice method to cut the options only for those options we want to be under movies, books or sports when they are selected in the first drop-down. Generally, on QuestionPro, we need to get the HTML elements by class, and for Flex Matrix question, the path is always same until table body. After that, it depends on how many rows and columns we have on the question, and the dropdown is placed on which row or column. Here after tbody, we have only tr as there is only 1 row in the question, and after that td for table cells and nth child 3 to select exactly the first row and third column, and then we have form select which is located in column 3. And then inside the form select we have ul which means unordered list, and then li, list items. If we go back to the preview mode of the question, here we see that we have 1 row, tr, and 3 column. Left one with the text can be selected by td nth child 1, and the middle one which the first drop-down located in, can be selected by td nth child 2, and the right one which have the second drop-down inside with td nth child 3. In the first line, after tbody, we need to select tr for the row and then td nth child 3, then the form select which is the drop-down list. Then ul and li which is the options in the drop-down list. If you have more rows, then the specific row can be selected with tr and then nth and then the child number. As mentioned earlier, the HTML element needs to be selected by class, and for Flex Matrix question, until tbody always is the same. You can also find the path and class name of each HTML element with Google Inspect, by right-click anywhere while in preview mode then click on Inspect. On the right side you can find the details of each HTML element on this page previewed. After finding the full path of the HTML element for the list options in the second drop-down and defining the variables for full list items and slicing into categories, First thing is we need to hide all the options when the page is run, by using add class, hidden, to change the property of the li to hide the options. And then we need onChange function for the first dropdown in order to the change to be reflected on page when we select an option in the first dropdown. For example, when we choose movies in the first dropdown, it will show only the options we have sliced for movies in the second dropdown. And then defining another variable for dropdown1, then dropdown1 equal to option selected using .text. Then with if statements, we will control the dropdowns whether which options to be showed in the second dropdown when we select a category in the first dropdown. First, if the dropdown1 selected option is movies, then hide all the options by changing the property of all cat with add class hidden. And then we will change the property of movies variable by remove class hidden in order to show the sliced list items for movies in the second dropdown. Then we also add class hidden for the other categories books and sports. Then with else if and else, we will change the statements if the other option selected, then add class hidden on all the variables apart from the option we want to change to remove class hidden. So, let's copy the code and paste it again in QuestionPro. Click on Logic, select Pre-JavaScript Logic, and paste the code in the box. Click on Save and close the pop-up and let's preview. After the page loaded, we see that the second drop-down list is empty, which we did with add class hidden for the full list items. And when we choose movies in the first dropdown, it show only the movies options in the second dropdown. When we select books, it hides all the options but only shows book types and for sports in the same way. Thanks for watching and see you again in the next tutorial.